What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome to another Believe in Wizards podcast. I'm Matt Moderno. I've got Bryce Simon joining me here today of Motor City Hoops, the Pistons Pulse podcast, the Game Theory podcast. Anything else here I'm missing, Bryce? You're all over the place these days.
Yeah, I get to talk about basketball a lot, which is a lot of fun and one of my passions. And I'm fortunate enough I do it exclusively about the Pistons. But yeah, now I got Game Theory where I can talk general NBA draft. You and I enjoy our text messages back and forth talking draft prospects. I know that's not what we're here to talk about today. We got really lucky just now, I have to say, Matt. We're recording the podcast with Keith Smith of all people. Yep. And I hear his phone go off. And I'm like, I wonder what happened. And then it was a Pistons trade right in the middle of our live recording. So,
and that episode was great and has a lot of detail on the of salary cap and financial implications of this too, which Keith is so great at. And I will include the link to that in all the postings for this too. I would encourage anybody to go back and check that out for more detail here. I really just want to get into some of what we're getting back, because I think for Wizards fans, it's hard enough to watch the Wizards, one bad team, and Pistons also not very good. So I imagine very few of us have seen much of, Livers or Bagley so far. First, brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside hard iced teas, hard lemonades, hard every flavor you can think of. They're all just as good as the others. They're all delicious. And BetOnline, it's your number one source for your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, UFC, golf, tennis, everything you can think of. It's the fastest and easiest way to place wagers, including live betting on your favorite casino and card games. Head to the website and use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for 50% off. You're welcome to bonus on your first deposit. And BetOnline, it's where the game starts. So I don't know. I wouldn't have put money on the Wizards making this trade or getting anything in return for Danilo, Gallinari, and Mike Muscala. So sorry about that. But for anyone who hasn't seen the actual details of the trade yet, the Wizards are sending out Muscala and Danilo, Gallinari, and seemingly nothing else, which I was surprised there wasn't more added in there. In return, they're getting Marvin Bagley III, Isaiah Livers, and 2 second-round picks. I was hoping it would be the Wizards' 24 second-round pick. Seems like that's not the case. It's a 25 and 26. James Edwards, who covers the Pistons for The Athletic, also said that those picks are so convoluted that it's easier to just keep them simple. And I know Amari, your co-host, is probably working through all those details right now too. But Bryce's initial reaction to the trade here from you?
Yeah, convoluted enough that even Keith Smith didn't go into the details, and we love going into the details. And even Keith was like, "Oh yeah, like this is like." And so I said, as long as it's not the 2024 one that you just brought up, because so just so people know, the Pistons 2024 is actually in Toronto now after the trade that just went down with OG, IQ, and RJ Barrett. Gotcha. But the Pistons, I think it's the better of the Wizards or the Grizzlies. Like there's some sort of 3-team thing there or whatever. So anyway, my thoughts, where do we want to start? We want to start what I just thought as a Pistons person.
I don't know, oversimplifying here, but who won this trade in your opinion? I'm a little biased. I think the Wizards did, and that's a rare thing here. But
somebody brought up an interesting point that a lot of times in trades we say who got the best player, right? Like who got the best player, and that's the team that won. I would guess based on age and those type of things, the Wizards probably got the best player. I would say that Marvin Bagley III is probably the most exciting player. Yep. Exciting is a little bit excessive, but most exciting player of the 4 in the trade. It's come out over the last hour or so, however long this has been, that this was a table setting move for the Pistons and something that's going to be bigger. Sure. And we could get into the weeds from the Pistons side. Like they traded for Marvin Bagley. They gave him a contract that nobody thought was a good contract. Then they went and got James Wiseman. Now they're having to pay essentially to get off of his contract, all of those things. But, yeah, I mean,
they accomplished something for them, right? Like I would still think the Wizards got something out of 2 guys I didn't think they'd get anything for. So to me, that's a win. But from the Pistons perspective, you are clearing up room. If you're Troy Weaver, you kind of have to make a bigger swing here this year. And if Bagley's not in your future because he's positionally redundant, move him now, pay the cost. You could always buy 2 second-round picks back if you have to. So you're paying a premium, like a reasonably hefty premium, I would say, to get off a guy. But if you can turn it into a bigger move later, then you need to do that if you're Weaver.
Yeah, I mean, so that's where it's like second-round picks or sometimes I'm like, man, second-round picks can be valuable, right? Because some of these teams really need them. And then at other times we're like, we can just throw them around because you can buy one if you need it. And so sometimes I think the context around them gets a little, but Yeah, I just hate the idea. I hate the process of how this went down for the Pistons. And that's kind of been something that's really come to fruition with Troy Weaver recently, is just the process of some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, Bagley hadn't played for the Pistons. He played the last game, but like 5 or 6 games before that, he was a healthy scratch. The minutes were going to Wiseman. They have, Isaiah Stewart should be playing more at the 5 than the 4 anyway. And so just on the courts, it doesn't hurt a whole lot.
I think for Wizards fans last night, we were watching them play the Hawks, and it was like, oh, Gallinari and Muscala aren't getting off the bench. This is something. Patrick Baldwin Jr. is the first big off the bench.
I saw that, yeah.
Like, have we turned a corner here? So it makes sense that this move comes exactly after that. Just on the year, on the surface, I think Bagley's numbers look pretty decent. 10 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 1 assist, 82% from the free throw line, which is nice to see. Only about 18 minutes a game. Does not stretch the floor basically at all, about 17% from 3, but seems decent on paper. Bryce, what are we actually getting in Marvin Bagley? Is he strictly a 4? Can he play next to Gafford? Can he play next to Kuzma? Like, how do you see him kind of fitting in here? Can he be a backup 5, since we basically just traded our backup 5s out?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the record, I've been team Marvin Bagley III over team James Wiseman in terms of the backup big for this team. So, or whenever he was on their roster. So I think Marvin Bagley has played well. There are some real defensive concerns, right? He's like not great defensively, but he is kind of bouncy. He has really soft touch. I said going back like 12 months ago, if you just watch the bigs on this team shoot, Marvin Bagley's jumper and form was the one clean. I would, is the one I would bet on. Yep. Now, I believe before he came to Detroit, when he was in SAC, they did kind of put him in the corner, and I don't know that it always went well, but I think he had a year where he shot decent from 3 a few years ago. One of those seasons in Sacramento. Yeah. I'd have to look it up, but the times I have
get kind of worse as career has gone on.
Correct.
Unfortunately,
correct. Yeah. So there is some skill level. I know there's some people that like watch the Pistons Pulse that think he is a true 4-man. I kind of like the idea of him as a backup 5 that moves pretty well and has nice touch and can really score the basketball whenever, and not as like the focal point, but can just get some buckets. So I said, I think his prototypical role is as a 5th big, but on a team like the Pistons, on a team like the Wizards, if he's your 4th big, like, are you going to complain about that?
He officially becomes the 2nd big on the Wizards by virtue of we don't have anyone else other than Daniel Gafford. And I think he immediately slots ahead of Patrick Baldwin Jr., who was kind of like more 4-3 than 5-4. So
let me clear. And so when I say 5th big, I'm saying like you have your 5 and your 4 starters, your 5 and your 4, and then he's kind of the next guy. And if I had to say, like, I would say he's an 80-20, like 5-man, 4-man. Like I would lean a little more 5 is probably going to be better, but
that's good to hear.
I think you could play him at the 4 in some situations.
And that's great. So you mentioned the defense here. Is there any rim protection here? Is he switchable at all? Like, is there anything we could potentially see him hang his hat on defensively, if he keeps improving?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think a lot of stuff is awareness with Marvin Bagley III. There is some athleticism. I bring him and James Wiseman up a lot when I talk about Chet Holmgren, and not to like talk about the Thunder, who are awesome to talk about right now. Like Chet holds up. Yeah, Chet holds up like when he plays with verticality very well for somebody as slight as he is, where like someone like Marvin Bagley doesn't. Like it seems like he can, like when he takes contact in his core, he doesn't hold up. Like he bends at the waist when that happens. I will say some of his best basketball was when he initially got traded to the Pistons. He played really well, and him and Cade actually had some really good chemistry.
I remember that. I remember you tweeting about like, oh, this looks kind of good so far. And
so, maybe you get that. Was that just the jump? Was it how the team prioritized him? Whatever. I don't know, who you guys have to run that pick and roll with him. But
Tyus Jones, pick and roll maestro, baby. So
there you go.
That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, because I'm like, Jordan Poole's not going to probably do it. That's not really his game. So yeah, maybe a Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley III in the 2nd unit for the Wizards. Just, not that winning's the most important thing for either of our teams right now, but I think it could look decent.
Yeah, I'd like to see it like good looking basketball. Anything above that is just sort of a nice to have at this point. Bagley is the guy that, like, at Duke, I hated how much I enjoyed watching him play college basketball because he just dominated people. You couldn't stop him around the rim. Doesn't necessarily translate as cleanly to the NBA, but I've always thought that this guy should be better than he is. And maybe if you just give him a clean slate of there's literally no one here to pull you out and replace you with. So just play through it. He's somebody that could like, at least, I don't know. I just feel like he's somebody whose value is going to go up in this situation and it can't go down. So at the very least, that's a worthwhile guy to take a shot on.
And here's the thing. He only has one more year on that contract that everybody hated. So if you make this trade, essentially you took on 1 year of money if you're the Wizards to take a flyer on a guy that could be decent. Like I would have rather traded away James Wiseman than Marvin Bagley III if I had to tell you, but like, you know, and again, I don't want Wizards fans just to be like, oh, the Pistons were just getting rid of him for no reason. I think from what it sounds like, the tweets from my co-host Amari Sankofa II is this was a table-setting move for the Pistons. They needed expiring contracts, and Marvin is not expiring. And I think that's the huge caveat there, that he does have that one extra year. So there is potential here. I wouldn't be over the moon if I was a Wizards fan, but I would tune into some games over the next couple weeks and see how he looks. He aesthetically, I think people will enjoy watching him play.
I can live with that. I think just decent enough looking basketball is an improvement here. From your guys' perspective, you need shooting too. So these two bigs, I don't know if one or either stick around long term, but at least they provide theoretical shooting. Neither had shot particularly well from three. Gallinari low 30s, like 31%, Muscala 28, something like that. But you know they can hit them at least, and teams have to guard them. So maybe one of the two of them is in Detroit long enough to make some difference. I don't know. Maybe it's a buyout. Maybe they are salary filler. That'll be kind of interesting to see.
So Keith brought up Gallo immediately being as a buyout candidate. Okay. He seemed to think like Muscala, I believe, a little bit younger.
Yeah,
and maybe
got a little
Muscala
more left in the tank, but
a little more. And this team does need floor spacing from the big position. So I could see Muscala cracking the rotation in some scenarios. It's also interesting. Gallo's agent is Arn Tellem's son. Arn Tellem, a member of the Pistons front office. So, you know, there's an interesting connection there as well. Yeah. I mean, I assume this ends up just being salary filler and what sounds like maybe another move for the Pistons. But in the meantime, I'm telling you, like, as you say, watching good quality, seeing a floor spacing big couldn't be the worst thing for the Pistons. The defense is a mess regardless of who they put out there. So
you're not getting much worse on that end. And that's kind of how I felt for the Wizards. Like, well, Gallinari's been rough to watch defensively, but whoever replaced him wouldn't be much better either. One other thing Keith mentioned on your pod that I thought was really interesting, and it was something I was immediately trying to look into figuring out. So I'm glad someone much smarter did that homework for me, was that the Wizards could do this move largely because of the trade exception they got for trading Kristaps Porzingis. And that was another thing that was interesting for Wizards fans. It was just, we traded Kristaps Porzingis for Tyus Jones. We lost that trade. As I keep reiterating, no, we traded, we got Tyus Jones as a thank you for helping facilitate Porzingis going where he wants. And you've also created that trade exception. So now they're putting it to use, taking a flyer on a young big. I think this is just the kind of move that I thought this front office would make a lot of, and you get a couple second round picks to do it. Eventually the Wizards should own every second round pick from now until the end of time. So that's also good for them. There is one other piece in this deal. Bryce.
Real quick before please. Bagley is like athletic as well. Sure. So I don't know if that's a necessity for the Wizards. Like, I know
an upgrade for sure.
I mean, I know Gaffer does what he does, but if that's you did, obviously, Gallo and Muscala for whatever is left in the tank, that definitely was not, if it was ever part of the equation for those guys. So pick and roll lob threat, even if it's off the bench, I believe that Marvin Bagley III can do that. So like just an infusion of athleticism and some, rim gravity with the potential of, if you wanted to let him, explore the space with his perimeter, attack a closeout, shoot threes, why not?
I've got nothing to lose here. That's not a Wes Unseld Jr. staple of letting people cook.
So that would be interesting if they'll let him. I'm really interested to see if they let him do that at all. But as a Wizards fan, again, it would be. I'm not over the moon, but hey, this will be interesting to watch.
The last piece of this, and we'll keep it quick and get you out of here, is just Isaiah Livers. I know he's a guy you and I both liked as a rookie, and he's just kind of seemingly fallen off. And I've honestly not watched much Pistons this year, so when I saw the reaction to Livers this year, my friend Ryan Oliver, who may not be listening to this, mentioned that it seems like Pistons fans had definitely soured on him. I remember originally it was like kind of positive. He was shooting threes. He was like a cheap corner, shooter, 3-and-D kind of guy. And the 3-point shooting has gone from 42% as a rookie, 37% as a sophomore, down to 29% this year. Is the shooting fall off just the main reason why fans maybe have kind of soured on him a little bit?
Listen, we and I'll include myself in it. Sometimes we sour on players way too fast, right? Sure. Just in general. It's been hard to support Isaiah Livers getting minutes, especially when it's like minutes over Asar Thompson and stuff like that. He just hasn't played all that well.
Okay.
The idea of Isaiah Livers is a very quality role player in this league. He's got decent size for a wing / forward, can play the 3, can play a little bit of 4. So there's a little bit of versatility. The defense, for me, it's the defense hasn't even been as good as what I thought. Like, he's involved in a lot of the
as a rookie. I thought so.
Yeah, and he's missed time. He had one reason he was a second-round pick was he came, he broke his foot, I think it was, at Michigan. So he's dealt with some injuries in the league as well. I hate the injury prone, but it does seem like some guys just have bad luck or whatever it is. So he's missed games. The shooting he has to make shots, Matt. Yep. And I think he has to be better than neutral defensively because he doesn't bring a whole lot else other than, especially offensively, even if he is making shots. The on-ball defense hasn't been great, and the off-ball defense hasn't been as good as what I thought, but it's a complete disaster off the ball for the Pistons. So when he's involved in a miscommunication off the ball, it may not be him. It may be who he's working with in that situation.
Well, fortunately for him, he's coming to an equally shitty defensive situation. So I don't know that there's much expectation that, like, with better personnel here around him, he'll look better or anything like that. But sometimes just a change of scenery or a different scheme maybe can boost these kind of guys into, at least he's rotationable. It'd be nice to have another sort of true wing on the team. And somebody like Landry Shamet's been really sneaky good for the Wizards, and he's not likely to be here long term. So can Livers eat up a couple of those minutes when he moves? I think that would be at least a nice thought, hypothetically. And if not, you waive him and you kind of move on, and you don't really have to worry that much about it if you're the Wizards, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, like when the Pistons traded for Bagley, it was at the end of his rookie deal, and then they had to make a decision right away. Again, for the Wizards, you get him, and you got one more year, and that's it. You don't have to worry about making a quick decision on him. With Livers, like, here's to tell people, Wizards fans, what we as Pistons, like, we thought he could be like the key to unlocking the starting lineup, right? Like, you have Cade, and then you have Ivy, who doesn't really shoot that well. And then, if you're playing Livers can be the floor spacer that unlocks some of these lineups. That was the idea. Yeah. So again, the theoretical idea of who Isaiah Livers is a very valuable NBA player. We've seen this happen, right? You go to another team and guys figure it out. He's playing for the Pistons after he played at Michigan, maybe going to Washington and playing for the Wizards. Maybe there's pressure, all of these things. I don't know any of this firsthand, obviously, but all of these things play into how a player plays. So, I mean, I wouldn't write this off as a throw in nobody, type of thing. I wouldn't bet a bunch of money on it.
Worth it. A cheap gamble, though, a low risk kind of flyer.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys gave up 2 guys who had no future there and all of that stuff to get Marvin Bagley III, who's been somewhat productive throughout his career, just if you box score watch, and Isaiah Livers, who theoretically fits a very important archetype in today's NBA. Like, I think you could do worse for 2 guys that weren't playing.
That's really kind of like a hole on the Wizards roster. Really, like, it's just, you've got Jules Bernard on the 2-way from the go-go, and sort of like a less athletic version of Livers almost, honestly. So again, worth it. Just take a flyer, see what we can do. Maybe he gets back to what we thought as a rookie. And if not, it's just a no harm, no foul move. And that's really what I want to see from our front office moving forward, is just take flyers, take swings on some guys that are younger and have upside, not going out and getting more older vets that can't play. Like, if we see Anthony Gill as the backup 5 and Bagley not playing, I'm going to rip the remaining hair I have out and lose my shit. But I don't know, we'll take it. Bryce, any other quick thoughts here that we didn't tackle? Anything you want to leave people with?
No, I just saw in the comments, like, A-grade trade. Like, yeah, I mean, I think the Wizards probably won this trade. I mean, at the end of the day, they got what is probably, again, whenever you factor in age and things like that, you got the best player in Marvin Bagley. You have a player that fits the archetype. Like, I'm not saying this is like a home run swing. It's going to change the trajectory of the rebuild. Like, don't get me wrong. But and at the end of the day, if neither of those things happen, you still got 2 second-round picks for 2 expiring contracts. And that's with me as someone that covers the Pistons, that's not overly upset about it from our end until we know what happens, right? Like if the next move doesn't happen, we will really be scratching our head. Or if this doesn't end up, rolling into something else that really is a game changer. But yeah, I mean, I think Wizards fans should feel confident that their front office did something very, very quality, smart, however you want to say it, with this specific move.
I go back about this with some buddies cover the Wizards also, and they think, hey, it's mostly what you do with your lottery picks that determines the future of your franchise. And obviously those things are huge, but good teams hit on the margins with stuff like this. And if you're the Wizards, you have so little to work with that every single piece that you can kind of like milk from this roster, I think is huge for them. And like you said, if you're going to maybe buy out Gallinari anyway, if you get a second for him, total win.
Yeah, no, I think, again, I don't follow the Wizards super close. I apologize. I actually looked the other day, and I think I have to watch a lot of NBA because of game theory. Yep. It's actually my least watched team of I looked through how many full games of teams I've watched. Some I've watched 10, 12 full games. The Wizards was only 4. Sorry, Wizards fans. But I'll watch them on Monday. I'll watch that game Monday. Interesting enough, ironically enough, whatever, these 2 teams play on Monday night. So
the good news is if you've seen one Wizards game, you've seen all the Wizards games. Last thing here, just Colin Barnett, and it never makes no sense in the chat. Both mentioned that Poole and Livers are good friends. So they both went to Michigan for Poole's 2 years. It overlapped with Livers. So I think, maybe that's an opportunity there to just make Poole feel a little more comfortable too, getting one of his guys in there. And maybe that kind of helps, with that transition a bit too. So
yeah, I don't know this firsthand, but it seems like stuff like that could factor in, right? Like just having somebody that you're comfortable with and those type of things. I for your listener, I played college basketball at 2 levels, JUCO and Division I. Actually,
tell them where.
Out in the DC area, American University. So any AU fans, alums, whatever. I was on the 08 and the 09 conference championship NCAA tournament teams. First in school history. Shout out.
There you go.
But my freshman year in JUCO, wasn't super comfortable with my roommate, and not that we didn't get along, but it was like not somebody I was close with. My second year, somebody I was super close with, really good friend, actually kind of a long distance family. Okay. And it was just my vibe and my comfortability was completely different. And for some people that stuff matters, for others it doesn't, right? Some people could be dumped in the middle of nowhere and figure it out. Someone like me, I really need that kind of comfortability in those situations. So yeah, maybe even for Livers, it's like having somebody like that can help him feel more comfortable.
It can't hurt at the end of the day. As long as you know that they didn't hate each other in school, we're good to go with that. Another plug here, go check out the latest episode of the Game Theory podcast. Bryce and Sam Vecini spent some time on our boy, Bilal Coulibaly during kind of rookie recap and things like that. So really good conversation there. So for anybody interested in that, definitely go check that out. Bryce, for anybody that wants more Pistons, wants more NBA in general, where can they find more of your stuff?
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter. If you guys want, we essentially our whole half of our episode with Keith Smith, and he broke down kind of both sides of this a little bit. So the Pistons Pulse podcast on YouTube right now, it'll be up on podcast later on, maybe not till Tuesday with MLK Junior Day on Monday, and then the Game Theory podcast. So yeah, we talked about Bilal, had some quotes from our guy here, Matt Moderno, during that recording, and then we're actually going live this afternoon. If you guys want to tune in, I assume we'll touch on it at the beginning of that episode along with everything else. So the Game Theory podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods.
Bryce is like genuinely one of the nicest people that talks about basketball, knows about basketball, and I feel smarter every time we talk about it. So thank you for doing this. I appreciated the shout out the other week, and thanks for giving our Wizards some love. We don't get a ton of that nationally, so we'll take when we can get it. And thanks for just podcasting your whole day away here and coming on and doing this. So everybody, we'll have more on this later in the week. Just want to get some initial thoughts from somebody that actually watches these 2 guys. So appreciate Bryce coming on here to do that. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff is appreciated. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, click that little like button for us. We always love that as well. And we're presented by betonline.ag, and we'll catch you all next time.